Hey guys, this is God of Politics. Welcome back to a brand new video, but before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join the Discord that is linked down in the description. But in today's video, I'm going to be talking about something quite different, but also quite interesting. It is the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. So basically what this is it is a law that is being passed by states around the country through their state legislatures that would basically say that whoever wins the popular vote in the national election would get that state's electoral votes. So as you can see, if we actually want to look at this map over here, it's been passed in states that are worth 196 electoral votes. So if it gets to 270, it means that enough states would give their electoral votes to the popular vote winner to the point where whoever wins the popular vote would end up winning the election. And so currently it's been passed in 196 electoral votes worth. That includes, big blue states like California, New York, Illinois, states like that. But, there's also many states that have passed it, smaller states like New Jersey, states like Hawaii, states like Delaware, things like that. And there's a lot of room for it to pass as well. So there's a lot of news about it now because it was a recent Supreme Court decision basically saying that states did have the right to fine people and fine electors. So when you have an election and a certain candidate wins a state, the delegates that the candidate chose from that state will go to Washington and vote for him or her. And so basically, what the Supreme Court decision said is that states can fine people for not voting the way they tell them to. So the state legislature or the governor or whatever can tell those electors, if they've signed this law and it becomes enacted, that you have to vote for the winner of the popular vote, otherwise you'll get fined or go to jail, something like that. And so the Supreme Court now says that it is allowed as a 9-0 decision. It was completely unanimous. Basically, this now looks more realistic than ever before. So I'm going to be looking at basically, is there a possibility for this to actually get passed? If you look, this is an interstate compact, which normally would, could have to have congressional approval, but it talks about how, there is times where it doesn't have to actually go through Congress if it's not going to directly affect the vertical balance of power between the federal government and the state governments, which I don't think this does. I think it's just affecting the federal government, things like that. So you could argue it may have to go through Congress, but I don't necessarily think it would have to go through Congress. It is constitutional. Those states have the power to choose where their electors go. So now, looking at states where it says are pending, are basically states that, it's been through sessions of Congress and not actually passed. So we can see, for example, Delaware passed it 24-17 in the lower house, passes 14-7 in the upper house, and then it got signed into law. But for example, other states like Florida, it was introduced to the lower house but then withdrawn. Same thing in the upper house. In Georgia, it's in the committee, and that's why it's considered pending. But you have to think Georgia is ran by Republicans. So if we want to look at this map over here, it's currently in pending, but really Georgia's ran by Republicans. It's probably not going to get passed there. If we want to look at the next state, for example, we can look at Missouri here. If we want to go down to Missouri, it's in the committee here as well. But again, this is a state ran by Republicans. It's probably not going to be passed there. Same thing with West Virginia. Same thing with South Carolina. Same thing with Ohio. It's probably not going to be passed in those states. But if we look at some of these other states, it says pending here is 62 plus the 196 would only get you to actually, would get you to 258. Right, so then you need some more opportunities, right? So if we do look at this, we can see Virginia, for example, did pass the lower house, but it has been postponed until 2021 for them to take a vote in the Senate, which is controlled by Democrats. The governorship is also controlled by Democrats, so you would assume that it will pass in Virginia, getting it to 209 there. Another one people aren't talking about is Nevada. If it goes down here into Nevada, Nevada actually passed the state house, the lower house 23-17, passed the upper house 12-8. It was then vetoed by the governor, who was at the time, it was a Democrat for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why it was vetoed, but you can argue that in the future that may be passed there. Another one is Maine. Maine, you have a Democratic trifecta. You have the lower house and the upper house and the governorship controlled by Democrats. It has failed before, but the most recent, it passed back in 2007, 2008, but it has failed in 2017 to 2018. I don't know if then it was ran by Democrats or ran by Republicans, but now it is ran by Democrats. So if you want to give that to the Democrats there, that would get them to 219. And then so you come down to these 4 states here, which would actually get you to the majority, I believe. So if you give these all, so it would get you very close, but it would not get you there. So you've got Minnesota, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and New Hampshire. So this is actually going to be quite difficult, but there's another option. You add Arizona to this list. If we go to the list of the United States state legislatures, we can see here, this is the map of the state legislatures. We can see here, for example, Arizona is it's a Republican trifecta. But in the House, the Republicans only have a 31 to 29 majority. In the Senate, they only have a 17 to 13 majority. And Doug Ducey, the governor, is term limited in 2022. So you can argue that by then Democrats will have a trifecta in Arizona. This is wishful thinking for the Democrats, but it's completely possible that they will get it. And you'll have changes in the electoral map as well, but it's going to be quite difficult to get it done. But there will be changes in the electoral map that will affect some of these numbers, but it is certainly possible as well. So if we go down to the next one, it is actually Minnesota. Minnesota, the legislature is split. The House of Representatives is Democrat. The Senate is Republican. But the Republicans only have a slim majority in the state Senate, meaning that if Democrats got a majority there with the trifecta that they would then have, they would be able to pass that bill, getting it up to 240. The next one is the state of New Hampshire here. New Hampshire, the House of Representatives is 233 to 165 Democrats. That's a huge majority for Democrats. The Senate is 14 to 10, but the governorship is controlled by a Republican. If we go up to the map of how it's actually been passed, it is in the committee in the lower house. It will probably pass. It will get to the governorship desk, maybe vetoed, probably vetoed, but Chris Sununu probably will not run again come 2022, meaning that there's an opportunity for a Democrat to get elected there, which would put that up to 244. And so, then it comes down to the 2 states of Pennsylvania and North Carolina. So if you want to look at Pennsylvania and North Carolina, they add up to 35 electoral votes, which would easily get you there. That will get you to 279. If you want to look at Pennsylvania here, it's in the committee in the upper house. If we want to look at the control of the legislature, we can see that the General Assembly, the House, is controlled by Republicans 110 to 93. The state Senate is controlled 28 to 22. So that's unlikely to get passed there. If we want to look at North Carolina, it's in the committee. Again, it's in the committee in the upper house. So that's pending there as well. But if we want to look at the map, the governorship is Democrat, but the House of Representatives is 65 to 55 for the Republicans, and the Senate is 29 to 21. So, those 2 states would get you there, but it is quite difficult. There's another opportunity that you might have, which is the state of Michigan. In Michigan, the Senate is 22 to 16, and the House is 58 to 42, and you do have a Democratic governor. So you can put that in the possibility of it passing. If we want to look at Wisconsin, for example, the state assembly is completely gerrymandered here, so that's going to be very difficult to happen, and it's probably not going to happen. So that's probably out of the window. Ohio's another one where it's pending, but again, Republicans have such a huge majority here that it probably won't make a difference. There are some opportunities that the Democrats may have in some other states, but it is going to be quite difficult. But it will come down to those 3 states that are pending here. I do think that, this is not going to happen by the 2020 election, but if you're thinking, could it happen by the 2024 election, you'd have to take Nevada to sign it, the Nevada governor. You'd have to take the Arizona to pass it. Minnesota would have to pass it. Virginia would have to pass it. New Hampshire would have to pass it. And then 2 of these 3 states would have to pass it. I don't think Pennsylvania is necessarily very likely. I think Michigan's more likely, and then you need 1 more of these states. So it's going to be quite difficult if, they want Democrats mostly. These are almost all controlled by Democrats. If Democrats want to get this thing done, it's going to be quite difficult. A Biden loss would actually aid Democrats in this sense, because there'd most likely be a wave year in 2022. You have all the state legislatures up. and that would actually be quite a big thing to happen. If we want to look at, if you really want to think maybe Georgia in the future could be a state where it could happen, um, you know, but it gets quite difficult getting up to that actual 270 mark there. But it is possible in the future, and I just wanted to talk about this because it's actually quite an interesting thing, especially with the recent events that have been going on with faithless electors and decisions by the Supreme Court, things like that. So this is the map. If I had to say, will it be passed by 2024? I would say probably not. I'd say the chances are maybe 1 in 3. But just because, Democrats aren't going to have control of the state legislature in many of these places. But it is possible, and this would be a huge change to the way, elections are ran, things like that. The Electoral College would basically be useless because people would be campaigning in the biggest states rather than the swing states. So, that's just what I want to talk about in this video. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join the Discord that is linked down in the description. So again, guys, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys later.